Hello and welcome to our TOEFL writing video series. Today we are going to be talking about the independent writing task number 2. Specifically, I'm going to take you through how to write a preference essay. So first I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the specifics when it comes to this essay. We'll look at a foolproof outline that you can use, and then we will write our essay together. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, when it comes to the preference question essay, I want you to keep a couple of things in mind with this question type. First off, you are going to have a choice between two options. And so then you must decide which option you prefer. So again, preference, you're going to have just two options here. This is what differentiates this question from the other questions. So keep that in mind whenever you see two options. And of course, you have to provide specific reasons and examples to explain your preference. Now, most test takers find this a little bit challenging because they have to make a quick decision as to which option they prefer. And I would give you this advice. You don't always have to choose the option that you personally agree with or that you personally prefer, but I would definitely choose the option that you believe will be easier to find examples for and easier to explain. Let's look at two different examples of prompts. The first one is right here, and it says, some people prefer to live in a small town. Others prefer to live in a big city. So you see here, these are two opposites. Then your question, which place would you prefer to live in? And of course, use specific reasons and details to support your answer. So it's very clear, you know that it's definitely going to be a preference question due to the word here, prefer, and the two options, the two different preferences. Now this is the prompt we're going to use today. So it says, some people spend their entire lives in one place. Others move a number of times throughout their lives, looking for a better job, house, community, or even climate. Which do you prefer? Staying in one place or moving in search of another place? Use reasons and specific examples to support your opinion. So this specific prompt is a bit longer, it has more explanation, and you should actually take this into consideration and actually use it. So we're very lucky in that the prompt gives us some things to think about. We can think of career progression, housing, different communities, and even weather. So this is nice to encourage us to start thinking. So keep this in mind. We're going to return to it in just a couple minutes. Before we do that, I want to take you through an outline and also a guide that you can use when answering this question and writing your essay. So first off, we've got this 3-step guide. Step 1 is obviously going to be reading your question and deciding your preference. Remember what I said earlier, you want to choose the option that is going to be easier for you to write about and find examples for. Step 2, you're going to develop your reasoning and make an outline. Now you might be thinking, you might not have enough time to make an outline. After all, you have 30 minutes for the entire phase of this task. So that means you have 30 minutes for reading and writing and revising. But trust me, with time and practice, making an outline will be indispensable. It'll really help you jot down your thoughts and create a nice guide for your essay. And lastly, of course, you're going to start writing and then revise as necessary. So the outline I'm talking about looks exactly like this. We have 3 distinct sections, but 5 paragraphs. So let's look at the introduction first. In this introduction, you're going to provide background information about the essay topic, and then you're going to write a strong thesis statement. The thesis statement is probably the most important statement in your essay because it's going to tell the examiner what you are arguing. Then in body paragraphs A, B, and C, these 3 distinct paragraphs, they're all going to have the same format. So you're first going to include a transition word or a phrase at the beginning. I'll show you what this looks like in just a bit. And this is actually part of your topic sentence. So your topic sentence is the first sentence of your paragraph that is really just going to open it up and explain this section of your essay. And then, of course, the rest of your sentences are going to be supporting sentences. And you're basically going to support what you said in the topic sentence. Lastly, your conclusion is, of course, going to include a transition word or a phrase at the beginning, things like in conclusion or to sum up. Then you're going to briefly restate your thesis statement, of course, in different words, which is what you did in the introduction. And then very briefly, you're going to provide a brief summary of your main ideas, of course, in different words, and also with a shorter length in your conclusion. So we're going to look at this in the next slide here, and then we're going to write our essay. Okay, and again, here is our prompt at the top. Just to refresh your memory, I'll read it again, and I want you to start thinking of what would be easier for you to use as a preference and give examples for. So again, it says, some people spend their entire lives in one place. Others move a number of times throughout their lives, looking for a better job, house, community, or even climate. Which do you prefer, staying in one place or moving in search of another place? Use reasons and specific examples to support your opinion. Now, I've got our lovely breakdown of our outline here right below. And again, just to remind you, we've got the introductory paragraph, the 3 body paragraphs, and the conclusion paragraph. Now, when you make your outline for practice or during the exam, you can format it as you like. Remember, no one is going to be looking at it, so you don't have to use perfect grammar or even perfect spelling. Whatever is easiest for you to basically bring your thoughts to paper is the best option. So I have just included these various ideas just to make sure that we are getting everything we need to and that we're being very thorough. So first off, I've got our introductory paragraph, and I have background information about the essay topic and a strong thesis statement. Now I'm going to write in red just so that you can follow along with my notes. And when it comes to your paragraph, of course, you want to basically paraphrase what you see in the writing prompt. And when I say paraphrase, that means use synonyms and basically say this in your own way. So I'm going to talk about how traveling for vacation used to be quite common in the past. Now traveling is even more common in life. So what was once reserved for vacations is now pretty common. And I'm going to introduce both sides of the argument. This is really important, and it really helps introduce your argument. So I'm going to also make a point of saying that some people prefer to stay in one place and not really travel as often as it is becoming now. And now for my thesis statement, I need to decide what is easiest for me. And personally, I find it easier to make an argument for traveling in many different places. And just the fact that the prompt gives you these ideas of things to think about, like a job, a house, a community, just further helps me make this argument. So I am going to be very clear and say that I would prefer moving in search of another place because, and I'm going to make this arrow just so that it links it for me, because it would provide better opportunities for professional networking, more well-rounded experiences, and an open-minded approach to life. Now, you'll notice here that I have, of course, abbreviated. Of course, I am taking my time with you today so that we can go through this all together. But if I were to do this for the exam, I would be quite quick. So I would use abbreviations that I understand. And also, you'll notice that I've included 3 distinct reasons. I find that this is the best way to really organize my essay because each paragraph will have its own idea. So body paragraph A will be talking about networking professionally. Body paragraph B will be talking about well-rounded experiences. And in body paragraph C, I'm going to talk about an open-minded approach to life, especially when it comes to different cultures and countries. So that is my thesis statement. The more you work on this, the easier it will become. I would suggest sticking with a 3-point approach just because that will help you as you write your essay. It'll just be really clear. Now I'm going to start thinking about my first topic, so that is professional networking. And just so that I don't forget, I am going to write the transition word I want to use. In this case, it's going to be firstly. This is optional. You don't necessarily have to write it. It just really helps so that you don't forget it. Now for my topic sentence, I want to introduce this idea by talking about how networking is very useful for career advancement. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about how it really helps professionally. And so my supporting sentences are going to show how traveling can help you network and therefore help your career. So I'm basically just going to write that to remind myself of what I want to talk about. So I'll talk about traveling for connections. And I want to give an example because remember, you want to use reasons and specific examples. So I'm going to talk about a sales representative just because that is a job that usually requires a lot of travel. So I'm going to say a sales representative moves to different cities, and this will increase the chances of connecting with people in the industry. And so basically, I'm just going to talk about how this overall can help professionals create connections. And there you have it. That is your body paragraph A. Now, my body paragraph B is going to be about well-rounded experiences. Again, I'm going to use a transition word or phrase. I like to mix it up for each practice essay. So here I'm going to say something like, following this idea further. Okay, and this is going to basically come after body paragraph A, so it's quite obvious that I'm talking about this idea about networking. And the topic sentence here is basically going to involve how changing locations could foster a well-rounded life. Okay, and then my supporting sentences are going to give examples of that. I'm going to talk about how people can perhaps remain too comfortable in one place. So the fact that I'm using too shows that it's a little bit negative, this idea. And so as an example, I'll talk about a couple. Okay, and let's say that this couple is from the countryside in England. I'll talk about how if they move to different cities, they will be introduced to new experiences with unfamiliar people and places. And so we'll talk also about new interests and new ideas. Of course, all from traveling. Then our body paragraph C, our last idea, is going to talk about a more open-minded approach to life. So here for my transition word, I'm going to stick with thirdly. My topic sentence, of course, following the last two ideas, is just going to talk about how moving to a new place can produce a more enlightened view of the world. Notice here how I've used a synonym. So I'm not necessarily saying open-minded all over the place. I'm using a different synonym for that. And for these supporting sentences, I'm going to talk about an international mindset and a balanced perspective of the world. And an example here is going to talk about an American family. So I'll say US family moves to Italy, for example. And we'll talk about new traditions that they would pick up and customs that are not practiced in the United States. We could say overall this is a better understanding of the world. And here we are at the upper right-hand side of the page. Now we've got our conclusion paragraph. And here I'm really just going to write the transition word I'd like to use. So in this case, I'm going to say all things considered. This is a nice, unique way to open up your conclusion. And basically, for the restatement of your thesis statement and the brief summary, I am going to depend on what I've written in the essay. So I'm really not going to spend time writing this in the outline because it's already going to be written for me in the essay. So here I'm going to save some time. And there you go. This is how I go through my outline. Of course, like I said, I took my time with you today, but it's really important to just decide on your preference quickly, get your ideas to paper as soon as they come to mind, and then spend the rest of the time writing and revising. So with that being said, let's start writing the essay. Now keep in mind, I'm just going to write this essay all at once on the right-hand side of the screen. Afterwards, I will clean it up with some color coding, and I will explain the grammar, the vocabulary, the length, everything at the end. Okay, so I'm going to start with my introduction, and I'm going to say, traveling to different areas was once reserved for vacations, but some people prefer living in several diverse places throughout their lives. And remember, I was just using this option here, number one, this brief explanation. So you see that I've talked about one side of the preference. Some people prefer living in several diverse places. Now I'm just going to introduce the other side of the argument, and I will use a connective to do that. So I'll say, however, others prefer committing to life in one place. So here I've got both sides of the argument in my essay, just like it was in the prompt. And now it is time for my thesis statement and to state my argument. So I'll say, personally, I would prefer moving in search of another place, and I have to give my reasoning. So I'll say, because I strongly believe that it can provide better opportunities for professional networking, allow for more well-rounded experiences, and instill an appreciation for different cultures. Okay, and there you have it. And see how I've slightly changed the last part of my thesis statement. I did say open-minded approach to life, but then as I was thinking here about what we wrote in body paragraph C, I decided that instill an appreciation for different cultures was probably the better overarching theme there. And that's fine if you decide to change tiny things like I just did based on your thoughts. It's best to do that in the beginning stages, and that's why it's so helpful to include an outline, because you can look at your original idea and see how that might have been changed based on what you're actually thinking. All right, now let's look at our body paragraph A. I know I'm going to start with firstly, and again, I'm looking at networking for career advancement. So I will say, firstly, networking in one's professional industry has proven to be a useful tool for career advancement. Although it is possible to attend networking events in one's hometown, traveling to other areas can only strengthen these connections. Now I'm going to go into my examples. So I'm going to say, in particular, if a sales representative moves to different cities in his or her life, this would only increase the chances of connecting with more people in the industry, not to mention other sectors. And I'm just going to wrap this up now because I've given my topic sentence, I've explained, I've given an example. So I'm going to say, thus, changing cities can help professionals create worthwhile connections that would not have been possible otherwise. Okay, and then my body paragraph B, I already have my transition phrase, which is, following this idea further, changing locations could help foster more well-rounded life experiences. I'm going to explain this and say, if people stay in one place for their entire lives, they may become too comfortable with their surroundings. And I'll give my example. For instance, if a couple from the countryside in England move to different cities throughout their lives, they will be introduced to brand new experiences while creating a more well-rounded lifestyle, complete with unfamiliar places and people. And then to wrap it up here, I'll say, to put it briefly, this knowledgeable understanding can open up a wealth of new interests and ideas. And again, I've included all of my thoughts here, so I know I haven't missed anything. I'm going to continue on with my body paragraph C, using thirdly, moving to new places may likely produce a more enlightened view of the world. And I still kept this wording that I had here in my outline. I'm going to explain it and say, as such, international mindsets can provide a more balanced perspective when it comes to other cultures. And then as my example, for example, if an American family moves to Italy, they would most likely pick up on new traditions and customs not practiced in their original city. And so to sum that up, I'm going to say, consequently, this knowledge could provide a better understanding of foreign cultures and eliminate ignorance and closed-minded views. This is something that I sort of just thought of when I was thinking of this line here, better understanding of the world. Lastly, we've got our conclusion. So I'm going to start with all things considered. When it comes to staying in one place or moving in search of new communities, the latter is the more beneficial option. So here, this was briefly my reinstatement of the thesis statement. Now I'm going to give a brief summary of the main ideas, and I'll say, not only can relocating amplify professional networking, but it can also create more holistic international experiences and lead to a comprehensive view of the global community. And there's our essay. So I'm just going to clean it up a little bit, make sure that I'm color coding it based on grammar and vocabulary, and then we'll talk about the specifics. All right, and on the right-hand side, we have the finished version. So first off, the word count is 365 words. That's perfect. You need to write a minimum of 300, but you don't want to write so much that you are near 400 or even at 400. So this is a nice length. It shows the examiner that I have fulfilled the requirement, but I did have a lot to say regarding this topic. And so the color coding key is blue, green, and red. The blue signifies synonyms and topic vocabulary pertaining to this writing prompt. Green has useful vocabulary and phrases that you could use in this specific essay or also other essays. And then red has the important functional words. Now, I would suggest if you'd like to pause here, just so that you can take a look at everything. I'm going to briefly describe the most important points, and I want to start with red. So all of the functional words basically move the essay along. So it's quite logical. It flows very nicely. I've got however, personally, and of course the transition words, firstly, following this idea further, thirdly, and all things considered, but notice that I have them also in each paragraph. So they're very helpful for explaining, for giving examples, and also to conclude each paragraph. So keep that in mind. Then synonyms and topic vocabulary. Now again, you don't want to use only what you see in the writing prompt. So I've included things like vacations, diverse places, committing to life in one place. And then I have topic vocabulary for each of my paragraphs. So my first point was about networking. And so I have networking, professional industry, career advancement, hometown. I have a specific job, and I also have industry and sectors. Then we talked about being well-rounded. Then we talked about international mindsets and traditions and foreign cultures. And so this is all blue. Now for the green, I've also included some grammar. So here I would prefer, notice that I use a lot of conditional. So here in the first example, I have if plus present simple and would plus the bare infinitive. That is the second conditional. Here I have if and will, and that would be the first conditional. And I also have a lot of the conditional. In the third paragraph, I have the same idea, would and pick up on. That's also a great phrasal verb. So be sure to add the conditional when you can. It's a really great way to talk about hypothetical or even probable situations. Also in my conclusion, I have when it comes to, this is a nice phrase when you want to be specific, and the latter is. This is really nice when you don't want to write another sentence explaining which option you're talking about. So for example, all things considered, when it comes to staying in one place, this is my first option, or moving in search of new communities, this is my latter option. I've basically just said the latter is the more beneficial option. And also we have not only, but also. So keep in mind this structure is very helpful. I am basically talking about 2 or 3 things with basically one sentence. So these are the main points here. Again, I'd encourage you to pause and just look through this, take some notes, and make sure that you're implementing this vocabulary, this grammar, and of course these important functional words for not only this essay, but for all of your essays, because it will really help with the scoring. All right, great job. Let's wrap up this lesson. I would just like to go through some do's and don'ts when it comes to the preference essay. First, for your do's, make sure you're analyzing your writing prompt and you're understanding that this is a preference essay. Then you want to clearly choose a preference. Remember, choose whatever is easier for you to give examples for and make an argument for. Then you want to organize your outline and focus especially on your thesis statement, because that is really going to guide you as you are writing. And write at least 300 words. That is the required minimum according to TOEFL. Now for things you don't want to do not start writing the essay immediately. You might think that it'll save you on time, but as you're writing, you may change ideas, you may have new ideas, and the end result will really be an unorganized essay. Also, don't get confused about the prompt. Sometimes students confuse this with opinion essays, and they talk about both sides rather than just choosing a preference. So keep that in mind, and don't forget your synonyms and really just using a wide range of vocabulary and grammar for this essay. All right, great job again. Thanks for following along. I hope you found it useful. And I also hope that you will visit us for more practice. You can find us at www.bestmytest.com/TOEFL. There you will find other videos, other practice tests and lessons and more. So I would encourage you to visit us there as you are practicing and preparing for this exam. Again, great job. Thank you very much and have a great day.